It's now time for Sports Scene. Sports Scene with Greg Bicouvaris is an informative show with excellent guests. Now, here is Greg.
And welcome to Sports Scene, our August edition right here, produced by Saga and distributed through Audacy and social media. Greg Bicouvaris was a lifelong friend, and Jack Ankerson, public address announcer for Old Dominion, used to be as well with the San Antonio Spurs, the Tides, and so much more. Jack, good to see you.
Thank you, Greg. Nice to be here.
Tell us about it. It's an exciting opportunity now because you got a book coming out.
We have a book coming out, and quite frankly, surprisingly, the sales are going well, and which is really very nice, and it's very gratifying. We had a lot of fun putting it together. It took a while for various reasons, because we, in the beginning with my author and myself, we decided we'd meet once a week for 1 hour, and then that was it. And we would then move on to the next week, and I talked and she typed.
Yeah.
And that's how we put this whole thing together.
Well, I'm glad you didn't have to type, right?
No, good Lord, no. It would never have gotten finished.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, very nice talking to Jack Ankerson. Jack and I met when I was a kid. I've told this story before. It was in the late 80s. He was doing a radio show on WTAR, the college football scoreboard show on Saturday. I was his University of Maryland correspondent, and radio was a lot simpler back then.
It really was. It really was. I mean, I don't know how everybody works in radio anymore these days. It's beyond me. But it was fun back then.
Yeah. Absolutely. And of course, that was on the weekends. And Jack, you've had an interesting career before we talk more about the book, which led you to the book, is that you've done on the air, behind the scenes, public addressed. You worked at WTAR for a while when it was in Virginia Beach. So you've been in a lot of different places, and of course, sports management too.
No question. And I did a lot of radio work, for WTAR, the old WTAR back in those days. And it was a lot of fun. I did, radio play-by-play on the radio with Old Dominion basketball, and I was a sports director for WTAR AM radio back then, and then program director for a while before I left when I joined the Tides way back when. And so I've had a kind of a varied experience with both radio, and then of course we had a TV show too. This former sports editor of the newspaper, the Virginian Pilot, a guy by the name of Chick Riebel.
Oh yeah.
Chick and I had a little TV show at Cox called Time Out with Jack and Chick, and we did it for like 6.5 years. And taping it once a week. It was on Cox twice a week. We did the taping every week.
Absolutely. Talking to Jack Ankerson, I guess you learned something from each stop too. Basically, when you finish, you're from Wisconsin. Talk about how you got into sports.
Well, I was from Wisconsin, exactly right. A little town called Neenah, Wisconsin, which when I was growing up was 12,000 people. Now it is about 35,000. It's really grown quite a bit. And but I was sports from day one. My father gave me a baseball bat, I think, when I was old enough to walk, and we started doing that. And then I got involved with every sport there could possibly be back in those days. And we had midget softball, junior hardball, senior hardball. We had all these things. We didn't have any football going on back in those days, other than at high school when you got to the high school level. But so I was playing sports 12 months out of the year, even in the snowstorms. We were outside shooting baskets in the driveway. My father would clean the driveway so we could shoot outside, and then we'd play football in the snow in the backyard. Not
to mention the shadow of the Packers were around as well.
Boy.
He mentioned Wisconsin. My mom went to Ohio State University, and I had a chance to meet Woody Hayes. My dad and I did, and I told that story at a recent banquet that Woody really never showed mercy on Indiana and Wisconsin that often.
Oh, no. Yeah, but speaking of the Packers, my father, when we got to go to the old, not Lambeau Field, it was an old city stadium, and it was quite a treat to go up there. That was in the days of the football in the NFL, where you were down, you weren't down until you couldn't move off the ground anymore. It was unbelievable how tough it was. I mean, it still is, of course, but it was really something. Well, what a thrill it was to go up there to see the Packers play. And then over all these years, the Packers have had, they're publicly owned, and you can only purchase stock when they put out a stock option type thing. They've only done it like 3 times in history. I am responsible now for 11 shares of Green Bay Packers stock, which puts me, I was 1 million and some odd stockholders, but I do have 10, 11 shares, and I've distributed them to my family. I have the grandchildren, my daughters, everybody's got a share of Packer stock. So.
Are there any perks with that, Jack?
Perks?
Yeah.
There used to be, you used to get a business report every year. Now, A, you got to go online, and B, you're invited invited to the stock shareholders meetings, but you pay for everything.
Right.
And you don't get anything anymore because the stock is worthless. I say worthless. You paid $200 per share. That was that every time they did it. It was $200 a share, and that's all you get. You don't get, there's no returns. There is no profit involved at all. Everything is made by the Packers, goes back into the Packer Corporation. And so there are no dividends. And you can do one of three things with it. You can keep it, you can sell it back to them, or you can give it away.
Right.
But that's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Well, they get their money from the NFL, too, of course. The TV money, of course.
Of course. And they're all making a lot of money, but shareholders do not share.
Very good. We're going to take a break, come back with our part 2 of our interview with Jack Ankerson right here, Jack of All Sports. Sports Team with Greg Bicouvaris brought to you by Outback Steakhouse in Virginia Beach and Kempsville, by Chick-fil-A in Edinburgh Commons. Go by and see Patty and the friendly staff. Buffalo Wild Wings and Newport News, your football headquarters. Bohemian Amigos Record Shop. Go by and see Eric and the friendly staff right there at Willow Oaks Village Square for all your vinyl record needs and much more. Several accessories in Hampton. Raising Cane's, Paul in York County has all your chicken that you need.
Now let's get back to Sports Scene with Greg Bicouvaris.
And welcome to our second segment with Jack Ankerson, Jack of All Sports. Greg Bicouvaris, glad you're with us right here in the 106.9 FM studios for Sports Scene right here, available each month. And of course, Jack, you talk about your association with Old Dominion, football, basketball, now soccer, of course. But let's talk about a little bit about the 2025 team. Of course, everything is evolving. They've changed way back from the Colonial. They've gone to different conferences. But now they're with the big boys, and they played the Carolinas. They played the Virginias and the Virginia Techs, and now they got to open up with Indiana, who a coach that knows them very well because he coached at James Madison. And I have a feeling, Jack, he's not going to show Old Dominion any mercy.
I don't think so either. Coach Cignetti has been a winner wherever he's been, and he really did a good number on us when he coached James Madison. And then he took the job in Indiana, and he took half the coaching staff from James Madison. He took a lot of players, moved them all to Indiana, and they had a great year last year getting in the college football playoff system at Indiana, and they're going into this season nationally ranked again. So we'll see how it all works out. But so the Monarchs, they step right into it right away. First game of the year.
Yeah, because Indiana's going to be charged up. It's their first home game.
Right.
It's coming up the end of August, not this weekend, the following weekend.
Correct.
And of course, there's a rivalry there between the coaches.
The coaches, yeah. I mean, Ricky Ronnie is no stranger to Cignetti with the coach. I mean, they've been going at it for several years. So it's going to be interesting, but I think this is going to be maybe our best version of Ricky Ronnie's football teams at Old Dominion so far under his 5-6 years, whatever it's been.
Right.
And I think this year we'll see some real improvement. The schedule is a little difficult, but there's nothing wrong with that.
No.
We do have Tech again. We have to go to Virginia Tech, and we do have Liberty, and of course going to Indiana to start the season. The Sun Belt, we think, is not quite as tough as it's been. So there's some really room in there for a lot of wins, I think, with the Sun Belt this year.
But you never know until that ball is dropped.
Exactly right. And injuries and everything else that can possibly happen,
Well, let me ask you, because you do the public address, and of course your mood and energy sometimes is dictated by the crowd, although you ignore that sometimes. Does the crowd leave at halftime still of football games? And is that based on winning or losing?
There's a relationship between what the score is in the second half, and yes, you will see people leaving if it's a little bit out of hand in the end of the third quarter or early in the fourth quarter. That does happen yet. Coach Ronnie has always said he'd wish people would stick around till you never can tell. Things could happen, But yes, that's still true, and I don't think that's any different than any other place. That Old Dominion's no exception to that.
Right, it happened in the early years of Old Dominion too. It happens to all the schools, Virginia Tech.
Right.
But atmosphere, and that's the reason I'm asking you. Atmosphere is important at a restaurant. It's important at a business meeting. It's important at a social club. And basketball is a little bit different because it's indoors. You can see everything. Football, you're distant. You can't see the players' faces. They got a helmet on or a mask or so forth. The basketball atmosphere for the men and women, how is it today? And, of course, the coach right now, the new coach, replaced Coach Jones, he's still got a big question mark in front of him.
Yep, you're exactly right, Greg. But the thing about it is Michael Jones is a winner. And, all those wonderful years he spent at DeMatha and the products that he turned out at DeMatha High School up in D.C. And then he got his got his feet wet in the college business too, and his lifelong ambition was to come back and coach Old Dominion, and he's here. And we're very optimistic about this coming year. Several key holdovers stayed from last year's basketball team. They won a Sun Belt tournament last year. At the end of the year, a team that had a so-so year won 3 games in the tournament.
Yeah.
At the end of the year, and they really surprised a lot of people. And so it really started to show effects of the Michael Jones, his coaching and his whole philosophy about coaching. And the fact that he just loves it at Old Dominion, and that's what he wanted to do all along. It's just such a plus for us.
Yeah, I saw him when he was an assistant at the University of Maryland prior to, but it's always the before and after. But I think Jack is right. I think this year, too, will be a lot easier for him. Yeah. Have a year under his belt. Moving is not a big deal, but it is for a college coach because they move all the time.
Right.
But when I say moving, he had to move to a different state, and you have to get acclimated.
Oh, yeah. Of course, he didn't take him long to get back to familiar territory here.
Right.
When he was on the great basketball teams back when he played and the Villanova upset, and things like that when they did in the NCAA tournament. Michael was a key contributor to that big win. But he didn't take him long to get back into familiar territory here at home.
To do an opposite, you remember Bobby Wilder, of course.
I do.
Now, Bobby was a salesman and a politician.
Yes, he is.
And you almost have to now, Jack, to be somewhere in the middle line there, to be a coach, to be a salesperson, a fundraiser, something like that.
And he's got the same game plan, business plan down at Tennessee Tech, and he's doing very well down there as well. And I would have expected nothing less from Bobby.
Yeah.
Because he did a great job getting this program started here. He got here in 2007. We didn't play the first game till 2009. And my God, that man was on the road, breakfast, lunch, and dinner the 2 years, speaking to anybody, anywhere, whoever wanted him to speak. He did it. And all till the day he left here.
Yeah.
He was selling Old Dominion football.
He really was. Just a great person, good salesperson. We interviewed him a long time ago. Let's talk about the book. What are some of the chapters in the book?
Yeah, we interestingly enough, the author and I, we sat down to talk about the book, and she said, because it's you and your background and your history, she said, we're not going to call them chapters. We're going to call them innings.
Oh, wow, cool.
Innings.
Nice.
Yeah, and it starts like in the beginning with my background back in Neenah, Wisconsin, when it all started, and we kind of go through life stages. They're kind of chapters are kind of geared to whatever that particular subject was that year. We have the early on, then we have the college time where I had a great deal of success in college, and then we get into when I was working first, then I went to the NFL when I signed my contract with St. Louis, and then 2 times I was there in training camps with the Cardinals, and then out of that, then back to work, and then met a guy on an airplane. And it was unbelievable. I was working for a company called American Can Company, and I was at a business trip in Baltimore. I think it was Baltimore, yeah. And I was flying back to San Francisco, where I was working then for the can company. And I sat next to this guy on an airplane. And as we took off, he noticed that I was reading Sporting News or Sports Illustrated or something like that. And he said, "Are you really interested in sports?" And from there, the conversation just took off. And he had no idea. He did not introduce himself or anything. And then he asked me if I had seen he said, "Do you get Sports Illustrated?" I said, "I have that with me." And he said, "We got a long flight." He said, "Maybe if you get a chance, you wouldn't mind reading. There's an article in there. I'd be interested to hear what you think." And it was an article in the Sports Illustrated about the American Basketball Association. And it was about specifically, more than anything else, the Indiana Pacers organization. And it didn't show any pictures, just showed pictures of players. But it said this was the real success story. And it was being led by a guy who used to be the assistant general manager of the Baltimore Bullets, and his name was Mike Storin, and he's running the show at Indiana. So I got up done reading the whole thing, and he said, "What do you think?" And I said, "Well, no, I'm all in favor of another league, give guys a chance to play, and, no question about that." I said, "I'm not so sure about the red, white, and blue ball.
Yeah.
I'm not quite sure about that."
Yeah.
I said, "But it sounds like the Indiana franchise is doing very, very well, and this guy Mike Storin must be some kind of a really workaholic and a genius." He said, "Allow me to introduce myself. I'm Mike Storin."
Interesting.
And by the time we landed, he offered me a job. He said, "What are you doing selling cans? With your background and your history, come on." He said, "I'm going to offer you a job and teach you the business." Well, things were going well for me with American Can. And I said, "Whoa, not yet."
Yeah.
Not yet. Then I got promoted from San Francisco to Baltimore. And then I got promoted again from American Can. I was doing the right stuff with the can company, selling a lot of beer cans, a lot of oil cans, a lot of soda cans, and got promoted to Cincinnati. And he followed me. Each place I was at, he would call just to check in to see if this is like 2 years. And then finally he told me one time, he called me up in Cincinnati and he said, you drive up to my office in Indianapolis, 100 miles, can you do that on a Saturday? I said, sure. He said, I'd like to really talk to you about something. I said, I can. So you see I was interested all along. But So I did. I drove up and he closed the door in his office and he said, I'm leaving here to take over the Kentucky Colonels of the ABA. Nobody in my office knows that yet. He said, but I'd like you to come join me, and I will teach you the business. We're going to sign Dan Issel, and we're going to go forward from that. We're going to play in a big building, Freedom Hall. We're going to get out of that little convention center in Louisville. And I said, okay. He said, I'll tell you what, I'll give you 2 weeks. And if you say no, you'll never hear from me again. So the 2 weeks came and went, and I wrestled with that 2 weeks. I didn't know. My father was an American Can guy and the whole 9 yards. But I said yes.
Yeah.
Away I went.
And you ended up doing some work with the Spurs, too.
Well, I went from Kentucky after 3.5 years. I was the promotions director, then the business manager, then the assistant to the president of the Colonels. And then the Dallas team was going defunct in the ABA, and they were moving it to San Antonio. Mm-hmm. And San Antonio had nothing. They had a roster, and that was it.
Yeah.
The roster was not good.
Sure.
And so they had put the call out to see, they wanted the guys to come down to interview to run the franchise, get this thing started off the ground. And I was chosen to be one of those that was invited down for the interview.
Yeah.
And then I was invited back. And I was offered the job on the second trip down there. And my wife was 8 months pregnant. We had a house to sell, and we moved.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was interesting because, I did some big 3 basketball games, and George Gervin, who played for the Spurs, is now a coach. But 2 things I want to mention before we wrap it up with Jack, and we'll get him back one here the first of the year. 2, as well, the late Daryl Cummings was a friend of both of ours. For Daryl and I was from tennis and through broadcasting, and, of course, Jack was a lifelong friend of Daryl's as well. And the tennis world misses Daryl, but so does the Hampton Roads community.
No question about that. His effect on just tennis in general in Hampton Roads, unbelievable, Greg. He had his fingers in everything. And he coached at all the 3 schools, Virginia Wesleyan, Old Dominion. Of course, his Old Dominion, where he made a name for himself. Even Norfolk State, he coached the tennis team to get them started over there as well. But I'll tell you what, you could tell the effect that Daryl had on the tennis community and all of Hampton Roads at the memorial service that they held for Daryl in the Folk Stevens Indoor Tennis Center, the one that he got the money started to get that thing built. And the place, it must have been 400 or 500 people in the memorial service inside that facility for Daryl.
And not to mention, folks, the Tennis Channel, which is obvious. Daryl would always say, we got to get the Tennis Channel on cable. And that was another thing that Daryl worked on.
Oh, yeah. No, tennis was his life. I mean, he just, those who got to know and love Daryl know that he must have go to bed at night. I don't think he ever slept.
No.
He was always thinking about what can I do next? What different thing can I do? And a great idea guy,
And to bring this all home, and Daryl would text Jack and I both all hours of the night about different ideas, and we did shows together and everything. But as a kid, I went to St. Andrews, and I got to tell this story. And at lunch, we were served Stewart sandwiches. And Stewart sandwiches were nothing fancy, but, I actually liked them. We had the chuck wagon, we had the burgers, we had different things. And, of course, my dad and I would go to Met Park, which I still love to this day. That doesn't exist. I love Harbor Park, as Jack would always say, beautiful Harbor Park. But guess what Met Park served? They served Stewart sandwiches.
Yes, they did.
And guess what, Adam? Guess who worked for Stewart sandwiches?
Yes, it was responsible for getting all that food delivered and sold to Dave Rosenfield at Met Park. We used to have the big hot dog night. If you remember, 10,000 hot dogs.
Wow.
Free.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, it was crazy. I did have some good times working for that company. And then, of course, everybody got into the business of making their own sandwiches. And all of a sudden, every gas station has got a place they're making sandwiches and everything else. And
It's unbelievable, though, Jack, because, here I went to a private school. We had Stewart sandwiches, and a major sporting franchise, the main one in Hampton Roads, was selling Stewart sandwiches.
Yeah, no question.
That couldn't happen today, right?
No. Oh, good Lord, no.
Yeah.
It would never happen today. And because back in those days, the Tides owned the concessions, too.
Right.
Now they have a contractual deal with a caterer that come in and run everything. But, it was a lot of fun back in those days, Greg.
Leave us a note where people can get the book.
The book can be purchased on Amazon.com, Jack of All Sports. And I can tell you, based on what everybody's told me, you can order it today and you may have it in a day or two.
Yeah.
It doesn't take long. Amazon.com, Jack of All Sports. Quite frankly, I'll tell you, it's $25. Mm-hmm. And of course, it's a real bargain.
Yeah, of course. Absolutely.
Of course, it's a bargain.
And we look forward to talking to Jack more in the future. We'll be hearing some more exciting news coming up here in the fourth quarter of the year and also the first quarter of 2026. Jack, all the best of health to you and your wife.
Thank you very much, Greg. Great to be here.
My pleasure. Jack Ankerson right there, Jack of All Sports. Sports Scene with Greg Bicouvaris will continue. Stay tuned.
It's now time for What Teased Me Off with Greg.
What teased me off, Adam, when you try to park in a parking lot and someone has their door propped open, you have to get out of your car or honk the horn, and they get mad because you're inconveniencing them.
It is kind of odd, isn't it, how they're just sitting there with their leg out the door propped open a little bit. They're probably on their Instagram, doom scrolling, just lost in the day, not realizing, oh, I'm sorry, I might be an inconvenience to somebody else in this world.
Absolutely. Time. Just went to Greece recently. It's my mom's country. She was born there, of course. My mother became National Teacher of the Year, an example of becoming educated and doing something with your life. But Athens is a pure hellhole. That place has got graffiti on every single building. I'm sorry. Where's the government? Where's the police? Where's the military police? Beautiful islands, beautiful water, but you're surrounded by Athens, the biggest city in Greece, with nothing but graffiti looking like the 1970s. It's horrible, Adam.
That's crazy. I never would have known that unless you said that. Just, given the history that's enriched over there, you would think that it would be well kept and taken care of. And that's how it should be.
Yeah, the Acropolis is beautiful. They leave that alone. They leave hotels alone. Okay. They leave some restaurants alone. But everything else is wide open, fair game.
That's sad to hear.
Deciding on sides, Adam, we all need sides, whether it's potato salad, coleslaw, God forbid a salad that doesn't end with a lot of lettuce.
I love some sides.
Macaroni and cheese, but it seems like sides sometimes can become an issue.
You want fries with that?
Yeah.
It seems like that's all I get sometimes. Like, no, I want some options. Give me something.
Yeah. What's your favorite side?
Oh, I love me a good green bean casserole. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm a Midwest boy, though.
Very good. Very good. Yeah, broccoli casserole, whatever. Any type of casserole is good. I'm not a big fan of broccoli, so I do agree with George Bush about that, unless it's got cheese and a lot of butter on it.
Yes.
All right, how about we're going on the interstate? Let's just say, call it 64. We're trying to get home, trying to get to work, trying to get to the drugstore, and there's motorcycles swerving in between cars. If somebody just wanted to play a prankster and move their car slightly to the left, that motorcycle is gone.
It's a dangerous game they're playing out there on the roads. I mean, they're hard to see anyways, and then they come swerving up on, and then getting in the lane and traffic and cutting in and cutting.
Because there's going to be one person not knowing they're there, they can't hear them or see them, and they're just going to accidentally move over a little bit.
It happens all in an instant. Sometimes even I get over to a whole car is sitting in my blind spot I don't realize, let alone a little motorcycle. It's a scary situation for them, and it could be aggravating. It would tee me off.
And that's what tees me off. HamptonRoadsOnlineMall.com. Browse, shop, visit Greg Bick on YouTube.
Now let's get back to Sports Scene with Greg Bicouvaris.
And welcome back to Sports Scene with Greg Bicouvaris, our August 2025 edition. Always a pleasure to talk to George McClain from the Marksman and Newport News. George, how are you?
I'm doing well, Greg. How about yourself?
Very good, very good. You're on location today, so tell us what's new at the office there.
Well, things are starting to cool off a little bit, temp-wise on the range. We've had some air conditioning problems with the power with the storms and stuff, and it keeps knocking the power out in this section of where we are. And so that's always a headache. On top of that, just administrative stuff. We're putting in new phone system and new computers, so we've been staying pretty busy. As far as the business itself is going, starting to pick up a little bit. Summertime is typically our slowest time, and the heat probably has a lot to do with that. And probably everybody out on vacation, but now it's getting close to school starting and things are starting to pick back up. So other than that, good stock on the firearms and accessories. So advise everybody to come in, take a look, check us out if you haven't been here before.
I was talking on one of our segments of the show here. I was in Europe this summer, and I went to Greece, the country my mom was born in. Of course, they got beautiful islands. They still do. The Acropolis is beautiful. But, George, the entire city is littered with graffiti. And what does graffiti do? It attracts crime. It attracts all types of nefarious people there. And I'm sorry, I don't like graffiti. I never have liked graffiti. It cheapens the entire area. But when the entire city is covered with it, that just shows you a lack of government control right there.
Well, and it shows a lack of pride in citizenship. So, yes, that goes two ways there.
Absolutely. Well, let's talk about at the Marksman. You've got classes there available for newbies, and, of course, veterans, too, can always sharpen their skills.
No, absolutely. Mondays is our Military Monday Day, and so everyone gets a bit of a discount on top of whatever your normal range fees are, which is discounted for the military. So the military guys need to come in. I had a gal last week had sent an email and had no experience with the firearm at all, and of course had all kinds of questions. And it's a lot easier if this is applies to some of you folks out there. Just give us a call, and because maybe we should have a canned response to that, but everyone asks slightly different questions. But we can get all your questions answered in a minuscule time with a phone call versus taking quite a while longer to type everything out. But no, you don't need a firearm. You come in if you've never seen a gun before in your life, but you want to come in and want to get trained and set up with what you need. You may be for self-defense. You may be looking at getting into it as a sport. We can handle all of that. We'll get you in here. Talk to you a little bit. We don't try to push a gun sale on you. We got to find out what you like, what fits your hand, and all these kinds of things before we even talk about buying a gun. But we've got probably 20 different handguns, different models for rent that you can rent to use here on premises. You can't take them outside. So we'll fit you with something. We'll go over firearm safety, proper stance, sight alignment, all the terms that we use in that to where we get you educated right from the get-go, and you get eased into it. So I would sometimes rather have a brand new student who's never seen a gun, and I can get them almost to an expert level very, very quickly versus someone who has been shooting for years but doing everything wrong and wonder why he can't hit where he's aiming at the target, and then try to have that student unlearn everything that he's been doing. Everyone, here's the old adage that practice makes perfect. And in this game, what I say is no, practice doesn't make perfect. Perfect practice makes perfect. If you've been practicing wrong for years and years and years, it's just like a golfer who has been using an improper grip, an improper swing, and wonder why he's shooting 110, 120 every time he goes out on the course. And he goes to a golf pro. He has to retrain all that, to train the muscle memory, retrain the brain, and how he's thinking, how he's going to do the shot. Same thing with this. So I would rather have a brand new student starting from scratch. They just soak up everything that you have to say like a sponge. They do exactly what they need to do, and they get pretty much instantaneous results if you have that mental ability to listen, absorb, and then react to what the instructor tells you.
Absolutely. Talking to George McClain with the Marksman. George, how's the office in the store there changed as far as customer needs? A lot more is on social media. You're posting a lot on Facebook. There's always ammunition. There's always needs. Everybody that walks in the door has got different needs and wants.
Well, that's why we try to have more than one item hanging on the wall, or more than one type of firearm. Yes, you're right. Everybody's got different needs. And so we try to accommodate. And if someone comes in with a special need that maybe we haven't realized or seen before, we certainly have the resources to order in what this individual is looking for. If it's an item that is not that popular, but you need it. So it may not be something that we would stock if it's just to kind of make it a comparison here. If if this would be one thing, you'd only sell one every year, every other year, we're probably not going to stock it. But that doesn't mean we can't get it. So if you're looking for a particular accessory or a particular piece, or maybe sometimes even a part for your firearm or type of sight that you want, if we don't stock that, because we don't stock every type of optical sight or whatever, but we certainly can order it, get it in here just in a day or two, and customize our actions to the customer's needs. We try to stock as much as we can, but obviously, some pockets are deeper than others. We're a small business, so we're not, one that's going to have $2 or $3 million of inventory sitting on site. But we've got millions of dollars of inventory at our disposal that we can get in here within a day or two.
Absolutely. Talking to George McClain, of course, time waits for nobody, and of course, technology too, George. Technology is always changing as well.
Well, that's very true. And so when we talk about from firearms, the technology does advance. Some of the popular models, Glock, for instance, you're making some of the firearms now that it's made for certain optical sights, where before it was just kind of a generic firearm. And a lot of the sight manufacturers made something that would work and fit. But sometimes now manufacturers, Glock just happened to be one I mentioned, but Smith & Wesson and some of the other ones, they're modifying the slides on the semi-automatic handguns to take certain particular optical sights that people may want to have on there. I always caution people with optical sights, though. They're battery powered, and Murphy's Law comes into play here, is that if you always practice using that optical sight, and the one time that you may need it in a life and death situation, that sight may not work, your battery may be dead or whatever. So I'm kind of old school. I like to teach people with open sights and do everything manually, to where you're not relying upon that technology. But the technology, I get it. It's fun. It's fun to play with. Does a lot of things, and people do it a lot here on the range and use their optical sights. But even with that, you still have to learn your proper stance and form and grip on your firearm. If you're missing that, all you're doing is shining that light out there in that optical sight. But if you're not holding the gun properly, your recoil, your management is going to be off. And just because you put that light, that dot on that point of that target, doesn't guarantee that you're going to hit that, because you're not using proper form.
Talking to George McClain. George, tell us, as we approach the fall hunting seasons coming up, any do's or don'ts you recommend?
Well, everybody needs to go out and get properly trained with what they're doing. We don't do a lot of the hunting stuff here. We leave that to the people that specialize in that. Ours is more of into the general or the self-defense or sport shooting. But for the hunters, and I hunted in my youth and for years, I'm getting up in age now, so I don't have the stamina to go out and walk up those hills and mountains in West Virginia like I did when I was a kid. But make sure you're properly trained, that you got the proper gear on, that you got the orange vest, and that you're seen and be aware of other people that may be hunting around you, properly licensed for the game that you're that you are hunting. So that goes hand in hand with just you're learning the laws and obey the laws. That keeps you legal, and then the safety aspect of it's going to be covered in your gun classes for the type of rifle or shotgun that you may be using out there hunting. Just don't sell yourself short. If you only hunt once a year, like deer season, and that's the only time the last time that you shot a gun was a year ago, you probably need to indulge in a little practicing yourself before you go out and do that again.
Very good. All the best to you and Sherry and the staff, and all the best to BJ, your son, and have a great rest of the August. And we look forward to talking to you at the end of next month.
All right, Greg. You take care. You guys be safe.
Very good. George McClain right there from the Marksman in Newport News. We'll be back after these messages. Sports Scene with Greg Bicouvaris is brought to you by Mongolian Grill in Virginia Beach, brand new at Salem Crossing. Also, Sakura in Chesapeake, wonderful Japanese food. Oh Yummy on Great Neck Road in Virginia Beach for all your Asian Japanese food needs. Our good friends at Meat Hogar in Norfolk, go by and see Armando and the friendly crew. It's back to school. Get Mexican food 7 days a week. Midtown Eats in Newport News and Sandbar, a duo restaurant for everything food, nightlife, fun, and much more. CP Shuckers with 2 locations in Virginia Beach, Orange Shore Drive and Pacific Avenue. Go by and see Matt, Mark, and Chef Leon for delicious food daily.
Now let's get back to Sports Scene with Greg Bicouvaris.
Want to thank the good people at the Athletic Hall of Fame of the Lower Virginia Peninsula going in for broadcasting. I was one of 8 people recognized. I was the one in the media. The rest were coaches and athletes. It was a pure honor right there on that day in Hampton with wonderful people as well. Want to thank our guests today, Jack Ankerson and George McClain, our August 2025 edition. For more, go to gjbtv.com, click the YouTube link, and subscribe. For Adam Armstrong, I'm Greg Bicouvaris. We'll talk to you soon.
Sports Scene is produced by gjbtv.com and the Hampton Roads Media Group.